Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Good afternoon, good evening. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. We're about ready to get started here with our live session of New York here on Monday, March the 30th. It's going to be an exciting week ahead with the monthly end flows. There's a lot of buying that needs to take place in these last couple of days. It's also a week rich in data, which means we're going to see lots of awful headlines, whether it's the ISM manufacturing, the non-manufacturing, non-farm payrolls. Probably see what they're saying, only an $81,000 forecast. I don't know. I think we're going to be looking at, the unemployment claims should be back towards 3 million from what I've heard. We'll see. It's going to be an active week. That's for sure. Volatility is not going to let up. I'm going to give everyone here another minute or two before we start getting into the charts. We're going to start off early in the session, looking at all different setups going on right now. And there is a bunch of waves coming into the market. It's going to be a question about picking the best one. What's going? John, you have a link for that? I didn't see anything about that at all. I'm going to start fresh with the charts. I have not really had a chance to look around. I saw WTI was trading right around $20, and it looks like it has the possibility here of breaking down. But at the same time, I know that Trump is calling Vladimir today and trying to see what he could do. Now, he already spoke with Saudi Arabia last week, and Saudi Arabia said, "You listen, this if we're going to do something here, it has to be a joint effort with Russia." Now he's on the phone with Putin. I don't know. Trump and Putin have a relationship. It's possible, although not likely. We could go either way. I want to keep this drawn in here, right here. We're going to get into the charts right now, but I just want to keep this drawn in over here. I'm going to put just a lower line here and just keep this triangle, because we're going to break out of there this week in one direction, one way or the other. Ooh, sweet Texas. Got to get me some sweet Texas. That makes me sad to hear. And when I say that, I mean that sincerely, because so many people are dependent on oil in Canada, and the economy really, a lot of people. It affects the lives of a lot of people. There is the possibility that I've heard that oil could actually even trade negative because of the cost of actually storing it. That it is possible in this weird situation and world we live in that oil could actually trade negative, as does at some points natural gas. So here we are. Let's kick this off with the dollar. Has been the story of the day. I noticed that a lot of you all have been really crushing the dollar on multiple pairs today, all over the retrace in the dollar since Friday's close. The dollar has definitely rebounded up and is trading at, what are we at, 99.17. Nice move here. Whether or not it's going to continue or what the story is, I don't know. I do remain a dollar bull. I saw a definite little bit of a news from Goldman Sachs recommending that they think that the dollar has, well, actually much higher to go. That makes me a little bit nervous. I don't really like to see when Goldman Sachs is recommended, a trade that I'm involved in at all. I do want to, before we get into the chart, all right, I'll do the charts first, and then I'll talk about what's important. All right, let's start here with the euro US dollar. Trading now at 1.028. It has, let's see, this was the big area over here I had at 1.10995. This thick line of resistance that I have over here. Price pierced above it into the last hour of trading on Friday, and then since has been coming back down. And I see over here with this little blue area of supply and also this trend line, that's the area where that if Euro bulls are going to make a stand, I believe that's where it's going to be. I think that right now, dollar bulls are just kind of taking back some of their territory. A lot of you are definitely long dollars today. It is an interesting time. There's a lot of setups, and why I'm riding some dollar trades also, I think I'm seeing some setups in some cross pairs now. So that's where I'm going to focus in on. US dollar, Japanese yen is in looking very, very, very poor. Yen bulls are in control. We've taken out all the important levels of support. Now you can see I've turned resistance. And then not only that, you see after bouncing over here, was this a level, a significant level whatsoever? I do see area of support over there. More importantly, they took it into the nearest resistance, and so far are holding that and defending that pretty well. So you can see that the dollar is still under pretty strong pressure versus the yen. Now, I can't even, the interesting thing in here is on the 10th, 10 days from now. So this is about a week from today, next Monday, the Bank of Japan is going ahead and implementing some pretty enormous stimulus here. 57 during the 2008 crisis, they did a total of 57 trillion yen. This is going to be bigger than that. If you remember the move that we saw, back in 2013 when the yen went from, I'm just going to say, call it $100 to 125 in just a matter of months. That was a $1.4 trillion quantitative easing program. All right, so they're coming in hard next week. So anyone who is involved in the end, just be aware of what's coming up on the calendar. All right, so far this week, we have just lots of data. And I think this is going to really get into traders' heads as they see some bad headlines come across the wires this week. We also have, again, the end of the month year-end flows, which is probably supportive right now of the S&P. A lot of pension funds need to really reallocate funds to stocks, an enormous amount of money. So whether or not we continue for the next couple of days to see some gains in stocks or not, it's more or less what happens afterwards, and it's more or less what happens come the first of the month when we start getting these data points, right? I'm leaning towards we see a big sell-off in the markets if the gains continue. Bitcoin is holding up pretty well, bouncing off of the 5,800 level, coming into this area of resistance. This is resistance now. And so far, this is holding up. Get back above there, and things look pretty sweet. It's already up 8% on the day. So trading very nicely. And gold is down. Gold is down on the day, but it's consolidating. Like I said in the weekly Forex forecast and review, as long as we stay below this resistance, I am expecting us to stay below this resistance rather. And you can see that we've come off, $15? That used to be a small move. I mean, that used to be a big move. Today, it's nothing these days, right? But we're consolidating. We're consolidating nicely over here towards the top of the range, which I do gather is pretty bullish, and it is possible we can make a leg up. If we break this resistance here, then and gold has a bid, then I'll be pretty bullish that there's a possibility we take out 1,700. Until we take out this area of resistance at 1,645, I'm leaning towards us actually coming down here and possibly in this area, consolidating above the support at 1,551, which is also quite bullish. Gold is just really being gold. Silver taking a hit back down to 14. I have to say at this point, it only gets interesting if we trade back down towards the lows here, for me at least. Let's take a look around at some cross pairs. Before we do, let's look at both the US dollar, Canadian dollar, and first the pound US dollar. And this is support. I apologize for having these charts not cleaned up, or this chart not cleaned up. The rest are. These two lines below market are support. And we're consolidating above that area of support. So again, this is pretty bullish here for the pound, right? As long as it could hold this area of support and it looks like it's resuming upwards, the possibilities are there for a further extension upwards. So interesting to see what the charts are laying out here for us this morning. So I would say that the dollar's mixed in the fact that the yen is in absolute control. The euros, the bulls still have the edge as long as they're above that trend line that we looked at and above that area of support. Although they've given back lots of gains today, and let me just pull that up. As long as the bulls remain above this area of support and above this trend line over here, they're definitely in control over there. So dollars made back a little bit of the losses it's taken on Friday and not earlier in the week, but at the same time the dollar bulls are not even close to being in control right now, not even close. I do want to look at some of the crosses, and it definitely right here at the Swiss franc pairs. And the reason being is because they continue to look holding in an area right into this resistance. This is where I want to get involved. You're going to see right now in a minute as we look at some other charts that all of our lines are support and resistance and are completely valid and always act as they should. And here we are into this resistance and forward looking, even just now swing trader style in the next few days. Again, today and tomorrow, I imagine we could continue to be bid because of the reallocation that needs to take place. But looking in the rest of the week, we got a lot of headline numbers coming up, and they're going to be bad. As well as we also have, I noticed that when as traders, we need to actually, this is, this thing is quite important to us, and we've been all over it by following what was happening and predicting what's going to happen. But at the same time, by me mentioning the name, and how the big G is always watching everything we say, they've taken down my views, by a large margin, by about 2/3. So I'll try to refrain from mentioning the name at this point because you guys have eyes and can see what we're looking at here. But the next 2 weeks too, the next 2 weeks, probably about the next 2 weeks, we're going to start seeing these numbers start to peak out, at least over here. Hopefully we start seeing some really, really better numbers out of these two, which these places have been hard hit and suffering. But I think that this is also going to weigh on risk off. Here we are. We're at an interesting point. Australian dollar, Swiss franc came up quite high. I think, I'm just going to follow price. And now I see as we're consolidating over here, it makes sense to actually step back a little bit here in the daily. Excuse me. Here in the daily time frame, once we start making lower lows over here, it might be time to get back involved. The timing of it, I have no idea whether that is today, tomorrow, or Wednesday. But if this resistance holds over here, or we even get up to over here, very high on my list here, and it looks like we're ready perhaps to take an entry if this starts rolling over now. Same thing on the New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc, same exact trade. Also up into that area of resistance. We've definitely bounced pretty high off the lows, which is good, rightfully so, as we've seen specifically the central bank, the Federal Reserve, step in, and I think they have most of their funding issues under control for the near term. I definitely do, but at the same time, I was speaking with a close friend yesterday, someone who's also in finance, and the thing that he brought up a couple of times, as you heard me say, he said, "What the worry right now is is economic collapse, is depression. That's the worry." Let's keep going. Let's keep rolling through. Oh, let me check it in the comments here because you're right. We didn't take a look at the Australian dollar, US dollar. Let's do that. I think gold is going to stay as low until they can no longer keep it low. until they lose control of gold, I think, obviously they need to do their best to control it. So the play is Bitcoin over gold, but you want to own gold as well. You want to own gold as a core portion of your portfolio, physical gold, the real stuff. But the appreciation, I believe, is going to come from Bitcoin. Here you are at the Australian dollar, US dollar. You're into some area of resistance. This looks actually a little bit weaker than some of the other dollar pairs. This is a nice look here on the 4-hour. You could see as this resistance holds, but you're also bouncing above this support. So the easiest way to play something like this, Gabe, if this is what you're interested in, I'm looking for this resistance to hold, right? Strong resistance, downtrend, pulled back into it, and for us to resume downwards. But for that to happen, I think the easiest play is see the support over here, start trading below it, and you got some momentum. That's where you want to look. But right now, you can see that price is definitely consolidating and choppy between these two levels. So just give it some room, be a little bit patient, and wait for the break up or the break down. But right now, that's in stock mode, waiting and watching for something better to develop. While we're down here, let's look at the New Zealand dollar, Japanese yen. And it's quite interesting. We've seen that yen so strong versus the dollar. We've definitely seen dollar weakness. And you can see that we're consolidating still. We're consolidating still. But we're getting to a point where the spring is now coiled, and this pair looks to be absolutely in play in this week, early this week, right? You could see over here, you could see the higher lows and the lower highs. And now we're coming to that inflection point where it's going to break one way or another. I would say that's a pair to watch as a move, a leg up or down is coming into the market pretty soon. So this is more of a little bit of euro weakness today than yen strength. And guys, this was the mistake up here. Price was up here. We noted, wow, that's at a beautiful, interesting level. And you could see then price has come off quite a distance since then, almost 200 pips. That was the play as far as that was the play. I wish I had a little bit of a way to get this message to the people. To people. I'm with you. Gabe, do you have a link you could send of your trading view? Click that on over. Actually, send that into the Telegram for me, and I'll pull up your chart. We'll get a nice look at your support and resistance over there. It'll probably be more helpful. Yeah, Gabe, send that over to Telegram if you can. Let me see if I turn these alerts off. Put that back on. And then I'll pull up that chart and we'll come back to it. US dollar, Canadian dollar. Johnny was talking about. Look at this beauty. Wow. And when I say wow, it's because you could see over here the little bit of near local resistance. Price looks like it's coming up, trading above that. That probably has to do with and I'm not familiar at all. I know that we have a lot of Canadians in here who would be a little bit more familiar with the Canadian crude, which I'm not familiar with at all. But Johnny was saying that it was trading really low. You could see over here, this looks good. This is like it's leading back on the way up. Those who were, how do you say, have a lot of gall, right? When we looked at that level, that was the trade. This is the entry. Over here, if we break up, right, there's still going to be a lot of play if the dollar starts strengthening up. But the play is obviously off of a retest now. Now, the one wild card is today. So wait for headlines today. Is that Putin and Trump are talking specifically about the price of oil. I can't imagine after Trump sanctioning Russia, starting this financial war that Russia right now has the upper hand in, with that they're going to be so willing to give in. So we could also see at the same time if Russia comes back pretty firm, saying absolutely not, unless maybe you lift the sanctions. WTI, which is already down 7.5% on the day, if it breaks down over here again, I think we're looking at 1450 as the next area to kind of base out, and not that we won't see lower, but that's near term. So there's a lot going on in the markets. Euro, pound. This is the pattern that we drew this in, and we said when we get a breakout over here, there's going to be a nice play. Look how things develop. And the only reason I'm showing this because I was definitely fixated on US dollar on Friday with those big moves. But right now, it's important to realize, right? This is a simple pattern whenever you see triangles, but they tend to really break out and play beautifully. Pound definitely looking pretty strong. We saw that against the US dollar. We've seen that against other pairs, and here it's continuing now to push down versus the euro. So it looks pretty good there. This is the New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar. We're seeing the Canadian dollar weakness coming back into the market. This now breaking back above this resistance. So again, it's not only it's not what we were just looking at, the pound euro. Okay, similar setup. This is New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar, and as we saw the US dollar really making some tremendous gains versus the Canadian dollar here. Even the New Zealand dollar is doing its thing. Canadian dollar is the weakest currency today. US dollar is the strongest, but that dollar strength is coming off a little bit. US dollar, Canadian dollar looks very similar to the US dollar, Japanese yen, in that it's taking out all these levels of supports, come back up, and it's getting sold off so far into, I have the area of resistance up here, but there's also one directly where price came into it. You could see the high resistance over here. What do you do here? It's difficult for me in that I've positioned and continue to position into US dollar trades. If I was trading this as a swing trader, I'd be looking actually right now to fade this as we trade definitely now in a near-term downtrend coming into this area of resistance. So if price starts making lower lows, then I want to be involved in getting short here. I think we got to trade back above at least this resistance all the way up at 0.962 in order to start firming up a little bit and then have the possibility to trade back into this resistance. Dollar is under pressure right now. That's for sure. Again, Japan will be acting next Monday. Let's see what happens then. Let's see what happens once the ECB gets involved. The US has basically gotten its big action out of the way right now, right? You saw the dollar beat up because of it, but now it's going to be a couple of things that come back into play. All those swap lines were short-term loans in dollars that have to be paid back. So you're going to have the demand for the dollars. It looks like near term that they've been able to fix the things, but I saw even with the dollar weakness on Friday, the LIBOR rate was up. So there are still dollar problems that I think they're going to come back into play. I don't know when, but it's also going to be a question now of other central banks looking to weaken their currencies, which is going to benefit the dollar. If you remember the euro Swiss franc, the only reason we're looking at it right now, thanks Gabe, I'm going to get that up, is because again, I think it's better to stay away from this pair, but look at this textbook into resistance and then peeling off, right? Downtrend, into resistance, sell the resistance. I don't recommend being involved in that pair right now at all, but at the same time, just looking at what happened. All right. So Gabe, I'm looking at your chart. I can't send it over because it's a photo, not a link, but I will tell you this. Um, when anyone is looking, whether you're looking to buy or to sell, you need confirmation, right? So what is that confirmation? Here on the Australian dollar, US dollar, okay? If you were looking to sell over here, this was Asia, this was London. Price came in during New York and made a lower low this morning. Did it? Yes, by 2 pips over here. That would be the first area for entry. Okay, down over at 6.61111. That would be the first area that you could get short. Would be when price comes in and makes the lower low. You'd have your stop above here, right? So it's a good looking trade, right? Because if your stop's up here, your entry's down here, and you're not looking probably at the first area to possibly take profit all the way down here. It's a really solid risk to reward. It's a really solid risk to reward, and it's a good looking trade, right? It doesn't mean it's going to work out all the time, but here's the thing: you only need this to work out, a little more than a third of the time. 40% of the time this works out, and you're coming out strong and profitable. So as long as you're taking the trade as price makes the lower low when selling, you're in a good spot. I saw the chart in the Telegram. It was a photo though, so I can't pull it up on the live stream. But it's just what is only relevant for you is that the entry comes on the lower low when price makes the lower low than the previous price bar. Otherwise, you're entering too soon because price could keep rising. That's just one way to give yourself an edge for entry. That momentum is shifting back in your way. And of course, there's no way that 100% of the trades will work out, nor are you looking for that to happen. And if 50% of them work out, you're going to be really, really, really strong. With the US dollar, Canadian dollar, also the Mexican peso is back under attack. Those are the two currencies that really saw that breakout from those trend lines go parabolic. And both of them now are definitely seeing that upside today. I think Blair was involved. I know Blair's involved in that US dollar, Canadian dollar trade. Night, what a beautiful trade it is. What else do we have to look at? Euro, New Zealand dollar. I mean, this is getting interesting here for the New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar. They both look to be at an area of resistance versus the Swiss franc, versus the US dollar, and versus the Japanese yen. So although we've been pretty strong here versus the euro, making back some gains, you're coming into an area of support. If you see this start resuming upwards, I would definitely look to consider an entry on this pair as it's set up. Breaking down below here could open up more downside. Let's check in the New Zealand dollar US dollar we haven't got to look at. I don't have any near-term support and resistance lines drawn in as it gets a little fuzzy down here after these steep sell-offs. But just eyeballing it, I mean, I believe we're into an area of resistance. And actually, this is now starting to come off to the downside. So it looks interesting here for sure. I personally and want to lean in though. I have my dollar book pretty set into Swiss franc Japanese trades. So again, this little triangle over here that we have of this consolidation, that looks like a good place to key off of. I'm a little bit worried about yen weakness coming up, and not that it will. I mean, not that anything's certain, but the Bank of Japan is getting ready to act next week, right? So what about the New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc? which is oddly up today on the day. When I say oddly, because the dollar and yen are stronger than the New Zealand dollar today, but not the Swiss franc. Nevertheless, this looks like it is also definitely nearing an entry point as long as this resistance holds and price comes down. I don't exactly know where to look for the entry. A safe entry definitely would be, that's pretty far away from market, about 70 pips. But that's when the momentum is starting to break down. You saw a lower low during Asia, but that's not a time frame that I would take a signal in. And then you could see it was a false signal. So it's still possible and open that we make lower low here during New York or possibly into London or Asia tomorrow. But as long as this resistance holds, this looks like something that I'm very interested in. Bill boy, we'll do that right now. Let's take a look at the euro, Australian dollar, and then from there we'll take a look at oil. This looks very similar to the setup on the euro New Zealand dollar that we did just look at. And you can see over here, there's an area that we're leaning into right now of support. The Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar have both been pretty not strong, retraced a lot of their weakness. We saw that on the dollar, we saw that on the yen, we saw that on the Swiss franc, and they're all now into areas of resistance on those pairs, and at the same time into an area of support here versus the euro. So I think this is a good area if price resumes off here to take a nibble at. Your risk to reward into the first area of resistance is strong. It's a good trade. It's a trade. If you take this trade over and over and over again, you're the house in the casino that you're going to end up profitable. So this looks good. You could also see here that you have a lower high between this swing point and this one. So now you have to make the higher high here though to see that price is showing potential of resuming off this support. Right now, for the last 24 hours, the Australian dollar continues to make gains versus the euro. And if it breaks down past this support, well, then there's much further room to fall, much further. That's why you wait for that confirmation that price is turning and takes you back into the trade. But this is something to watch closely now as you're into this area of support, possible lower highs in place. If we make a higher high, then that looks good. The reason you just don't enter now as you're into support, because until price shows you that it's making a higher high, there's the possibility that the momentum that you have now, which is down 24 hours, price making lower lows, will just continue, and not only continue, if it loses the support, it could bleed out. So that's why you wait and give yourself that little extra advantage. Oil's looking desperate here at the $20 level, getting ready to possibly hit the teens. Again, the one wild card is that, Trump and Putin are speaking today about oil, and you never know. You never know what the outcome is that going to be. That's a pretty big risk factor I want to play the breakdown here. I was tempted last night to be looking for a breakdown over here, because if we break down below here again, this could really, really bleed down, and I expect it will. But now is not the time. Well, for me, I just like to reduce my risk. This big risk here with Putin and Trump meeting today. Oil's not looking so good. Now, if you break above this trend line over here, which is drawing in kind of ugly, but it is what it is. There you go. If you break above that to the upside, then there's potential. Then there's potential here for, this is big resistance over here. Let's draw that in case we get to come back to it. Definitely would look to sell resistance if possible at $28. I mean, that's a huge, I don't even know what that is anymore. That's probably, close to 35%, 40% from here. That's a huge, huge deal. So there's a lot, it could go either way. If this important pattern right now, this little triangle here, and we're going to watch because it's going to break one way or the other, and it's going to be a big move. That's true. That's true, Jesse. Let's look at it. I remember the exact thing it did last week that you're talking about, or the week before. Um, I think what's in my head is this. Let me show you. We saw some big euro US dollar strength in this period. Came back down into this support line, traded up, and then we were trading down, which was what looked like with a lot of momentum. We actually price touched the same low over here, and it looked like at this point that the US dollar was coming back, and then from there the euro exploded higher. That's kind of what we saw today. So a price trade up, back down, come back up, down. So is that what you're looking at, Jesse? Are you looking here now? Possibly we're going to explode up higher again. That was that was in my mind earlier today. So when you brought it up, I was wondering if it's the same thing. It could be something completely different. But I'm aware of what happened in this period right over here, which feels similar to what's happening right now, at least for me. Again, as long as the bulls are above this trend line in this area of support at 1.09918, they're in control. And if and when the US dollar bulls take it below that, they will be in control. So you're at an area here where there could be a lot of movement. That's interesting that a lot of us often seem to be on the same wave, and that's really cool. All right, so 38 minutes in, we stuck to taking a look at the setups. Hey, the charts are there if anyone wants to look at anything. Obviously, it's open, but that does leave us a little bit open now to discuss other things that are important going on in the markets, including right now you can see the S&Ps, which opened up lower, I think traded down about 1.5%, are now up. And because of the moves that we've seen on stocks and bonds this past month, there's a really big misallocation that needs to be fixed up for pension funds by the end of the month. So there is a lot of buying that needs to come into stocks. I think that's what's helping with the bid today. I think that's what's helping with the bid today. My throat is dry. Excuse me. I think that's what's helping with the bid today. I'm expecting that could possibly last into tomorrow, 31st. And then again, what I'm kind of looking for to happen is risk off to come back into the market pretty heavily the rest of the week with some blowout bad numbers, as well as, and this is entirely related looking at the Australian dollar, Swiss franc, the New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc, all up at these resistance levels. Even the Japanese yen, I'm just hesitant towards the yen. And at that point, I think we could see the high in the market either today or tomorrow, and then possibly come back down and look to test back down towards the lows. So we'll see if that's what plays out. The other thing that I'm really concerned about next week is what's going to happen with the Bank of Japan. They're definitely looking and ready to act. Let's see what the market does. Again, as the Fed acted, and then the Treasury, the White House acted, actually not even the Senate stimulus bill, um, that affected the U.S. dollar. But now you have other countries who need to act. So what's gonna be the outcome over there? Those are the things that are important to me right now in the market. Obviously, this remains a big concern. I heard over here, I read there was a headline that said there was a resurgent in cases, but I'm not seeing that. Is this updated data? Yes, this is updated data. So I wish you could click on this and then see a chart of just that specific area. Because I'm cautious of any type of resurgences anywhere. Um, the reason I bring this up is because I'm wondering if, in fact, we do see a peak of this sometime around mid-April. If that's the case, what happens? I mean, it's hard to say. This number should keep on rising for a while because this lags this number. And of course, I mean, it seems to me that schools are going to wind up being closed through the rest of this year. It seems to me that the damage done to businesses being put out of work, to the mindset of the consumer. Listen, whether or not there's an actual threat a few weeks from now or not, the thing is, most people are going to be staying indoors, and most people are not going to be putting themselves at risk or active for quite a while. And, I don't know. Those are the most important. That's the most important thing that I'm trying to figure out is what's next. Yeah, Martin, I feel fine. My throat is dry. Probably from, well, I don't know what from, but from speaking to you all nonstop for 40 minutes. I think that had to do with it. But I seem to have, after taking a sip of tea, to have you know, I feel fine. We are now on day 15 of self quarantine. So that's a good look at where we are today. Um, yes, 100. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I will be all over that today on both those things. I wish uh, not in this life, not with 5 kids. But I will do that. I will actually, let me take some water right now, and I will be onto the vitamin C. Alberto, good morning. All right. I open it up to you all now. If you want to take a look at anything, it's a short session so far, but we've covered a lot, and there's a lot to get done today. So Bitcoin, because I love. It's so funny too because all of the support and resistance levels we draw in, they always coincide also at the same time, where with seemingly with moving averages, 100-day and 200-day or period moving averages. And it's just so funny how you get these, and also I'm sure at many important points as important fib levels. It's funny how the markets work. All right, so I think we'll call it a short and strong session today. There's a lot to look at. There is a bunch of waves. When I say waves coming into the market, I'm talking about the setups I see on the Australian dollar. These are cross setups today. Australian dollar, Swiss franc, New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc, the euro, New Zealand dollar, and the euro, Australian dollar. All of those, to me, look to be. Here's the look at the euro again, Australian dollar. If this support holds and we start coming up, this looks like an area over here. Definitely to get long on the euro versus the Australian dollar. The Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar have seen large retracements off of their lows, but they seem to be at a level now of whether it's versus the euro of support or versus the Japanese yen, Swiss franc, and US dollar of resistance. That's the wave that's coming in right now, as far as I can see. That's where I'm going to be focused. All right, everyone. So I wish you a beautiful day. Martine, thanks for the tips. For sure. Always, we always have to look out for each other. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.